people, will not wear a name tag for a variety of reasons, but it's really important to wear it because it doesn't matter if you feel uncomfortable. It matters if the other people feel comfortable. If they see and remember your name and make it easier to talk to you. And it's just one example of all the different ways we can become more approachable. And it's such a great opportunity to just reduce that distance between people at some kind of event. And frankly, when I go to networking events and everyone has name tags, I'm thrilled because I'm not the only one anymore.
Do you want to earn more? Work less and enjoy what you do each day. It's no secret, it can be done. This podcast with Dr. T will not only educate and inspire you, it will also teach you how to do more and be more with the time you already have. It will be like a shot of adrenaline straight into the heart of your business. Here is your host, Tyson Franklin.
Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of It's No Secret with Dr. T, the show that is brought to you by me. That's right, me and my book, It's No Secret There's Money in Small Business. The book's all about helping you earn more, work less, and enjoy what you do more each day. Now, my guest today is the author of 38 books. I do have book envy. He's a TEDx speaker, host of a game show called Steal Scott's Ideas, and a world record holder of wearing name tags. Please put your ears together for Scott Ginsberg. Scott, how are you doing today?
I am doing great. I almost feel like I'm back in Oz once again.
And I met you, we just worked out 9 years ago when you were visiting Cairns.
It was a long time ago, and it's crazy. So in the States, when I say that I've been to Cairns and been to Darwin, people are like, wow, you've been to real Australia.
I know, because a lot of people, they'll come to Australia and they go, oh yeah, I've been to Australia. I went to Melbourne and Sydney.
Yeah, so I feel like my Oz street cred is a little higher than average, and I'm really proud of that.
And the good part is you've been to two areas that most people are scared to come to because they think they're either going to get eaten or bitten by something.
Yeah, well, I was working at the time with the Australian Institute of Management, and it was great because I did a tour of everywhere from Townsville to Darwin to Cairns to Gold Coast and Melbourne. So I got to see all different aspects of Australia, and it was extraordinary.
So Scott, when I met you back then, you were known as the name tag guy, and you were the world record holder for wearing name tags, and you even had it tattooed to your chest, which got a good laugh from the crowd.
Of course.
How did that start?
Well, it started when I was at a university back in the States in 2000, so 18 years ago, and one night I thought it'd be fun to stick on a name tag just to sort of see what the reaction would be, a social experiment, if you will. And
was it to pick up girls?
Of course it was. Why do you do anything in college?
Okay, that's good.
So,
yeah.
Unfortunately, that failed. I did not meet a single girl, but what I did do is make some friends, and I did have interactions with people that were very different than what I was used to. And looking back, although I don't think I realized this at the time, I felt very seen in a way that I'd never been before. And it's like people didn't care who I was, what my background was, what adjectives described me. They just knew my name, and that brought us closer. And I just thought to myself, wow, there was something really magical here. So after the social experiment was successful for that one day, I thought that I would wear it indefinitely, but I really didn't expect to build a whole career out of it and turn it into this whole brand. It just began to happen organically. So it was just this crazy idea that slowly over the next 2 decades turned into a real thing.
And actually, you did, like you said, you made a career out of this.
Yeah, I mean, it started with a book that I wrote my last year of college called Hello, My Name is Scott. And that book went viral way back before viral was viral. So this is 2002. There was no social media, so it was in print media and CNN and all these sort of mainstream mediums. So it got a lot of great attention and started to build momentum in a very organic, amazing way. So books led to speaking engagements, which led to consulting and et cetera, all kinds of other projects over the years. And yes, did in fact make a career.
So from a networking point of view, name tags, going to a networking event, name tags are really important so people know who you are when you walk up to them.
Absolutely. I mean, people often object to wearing name tags at events for usually the same couple of reasons. Like they think it looks dorky, or to use an Australian term, daggy.
Yeah.
Everybody called me Daggy when I was in Australia, and I thought it meant handsome. So either way, people, will not wear a name tag for a variety of reasons, but it's really important to wear it because it doesn't matter if you feel uncomfortable. It matters if the other people feel comfortable. If they see and remember your name and make it easier to talk to you. And it's just one example of all the different ways we can become more approachable. And it's such a great opportunity to just reduce that distance between people at some kind of event. And frankly, when I go to networking events and everyone has name tags, I'm thrilled because I'm not the only one anymore.
Yeah, and I find it's a lot easier to talk to people when they've got a name tag. I was at Podcast Movement, and we all had our lanyards with our names and that on there. And when I went across to Reading Terminal Markets in Philadelphia, and I still had my name tag thing on when I was walking around getting food. And I'm just standing in the line, and someone turned around and said to me, "Hey, Tyson, how you doing?" And I went, I'm great. Do we know each other? They said, no, I just saw it on your name tag. And we sparked a conversation there in the line purely because I still had my lanyard thing on.
It's beautiful, and welcome to my life.
So would you recommend? So we know at networking events you should have a name tag on, but would you suggest other people walk around with a name tag all the time, or?
Probably not. I remember when I was visiting Australia, we definitely had more people than in the United States objecting to wearing it all the time because Americans, frankly, are just much louder in terms of personalities. So it's definitely not the goal to wear it all the time. But I think every business person should challenge themselves to think about what it is that makes them approachable and what they do and what they say and what is the unique way of interacting with the world that they become known for. That's part of your brand. And for me, it's a sticker, but you can do it any number of ways.
One thing I liked what you did on that particular day, you actually gave me a card that said, "Hello, my name is Scott's friend," which is really funny. I've actually carried this around in my wallet for the last 9 years. Now that sounds a little bit creepy, doesn't it? But
yeah, it's all right. No, I thank you. That always makes me feel good. I actually meet a fair amount of people that still have that card that I gave to them years ago, and it's great because my business card has the basic information on it, but it says Scott's friend because I want it to be about the other person. I wanted to try to have a connection and try to have an interesting component to it. So once again, that was something I did as a joke once, and a couple of years after starting my business, and people liked it. And I thought, well, there's a very simple business card idea to be more memorable.
Yeah, I love it. And the reason I probably kept it was, one, it was different, but on the back you had, hello, my name is philosophy. And you've got 10 points on the back of the card. And every now and then I'll be sitting, doctor's surgery, for example, anywhere, just waiting. And I'll have my wallet there and I actually reach in, I pull this card out and I just read through the things on the back. And it's a really good reminder of what you should be doing each day just to sort of maintain contact with people.
For anyone that's designing their marketing materials, don't just think about having the standard information, but think about how can you create value on this little 2.5 centimeter piece of cardboard that somebody would want to keep, that would want to reference, years later.
Well, isn't it funny? Because it's like I said, it's something that I've had in my wallet for 9 years, and I still look at it on a regular basis, which prompted me when I pulled it out of my wallet not too long ago to send you a message and say, hey, I wanted to get you on my podcast. And
mission accomplished.
And mission accomplished. So who would have thought that something I put in my wallet 9 years ago? And I think a lot of younger people today underestimate the power of a business card and the power of a card like yours, which actually makes you want to hang on to it because there's info on the back that you can use every day.
Yeah, I wonder if business cards will go the way of the dodo, but frankly, the fact that we're so digital is all the more reason to have something analog.
Yeah, well, when I was at Podcast Movement, a lot of people, you were all talking with each other, and a lot of people of a certain age, me included, we all had a card done up specifically for that event. So that we could hand out and exchange with each other. A lot of the younger people, all the ones that were under 30, you would say to them, oh, have you got a card or anything on you? They go, oh, no, sorry, I don't do cards. Yeah, we can exchange information via Facebook or other ways. And I went, yeah, fair enough. Okay, if that's what turns you on, and I feel they are really missing out on a marketing opportunity because it's and even my own card now, I'm going to after reading the back of the card again this morning, I'm going to redo my other cards and actually have something on the back that makes people want to hang on to it.
Yeah, it's an underrated piece of marketing real estate.
And just to let people know that the card that I actually have here, when I do my show notes up, I'm going to take a a copy of this card and actually put it in the show notes as one of the images so people can actually read your 10-point philosophy on the back. Because I think, and I want people to steal this idea and use it on their own business cards.
Please steal it. I stole it from someone else, so let's keep moving it forward.
Oh, that's what you've got to do. It's like Pat Flynn. You know Pat Flynn, the podcaster?
Yeah, big fan.
Yeah, well, Pat has a card that's very, like he has little badges done it that says, yeah, hello, I'm Pat. And it's very similar to your card and your name tag.
Nice.
So you either both stole it from the same place or he borrowed it from you.
Well, you know what? To have anything stolen from something that I've created is a great privilege. So I encourage people to steal as much as they possibly can.
Okay, and that's great because that's a good segue leading into the host of this game show that you do called Steal Scott's Ideas. So while we're on the subject of stealing your ideas, what is that all about?
So it is a product development and innovation game show. And the whole point is to do three things: to solve problems, create inventions, and then build out marketing plans to help these fake inventions make the world a better place. And it's something that I started about 6 years ago. Like, I've been incubating this idea for a long time. It only became a game show in the past 6 months. But years ago, I was working as a marketing strategist at an innovation company. And part of my daily work was just to practice the muscle of innovation and coming up with ideas and solving problems. And I started this log of these sort of goofy inventions that some were more absurd than others, but ultimately there's an insight within these inventions of how we can improve the world. So I kept this log up for years and years, and finally decided it would be cool to create a game show based around these ideas. So I sit around with my friends and my wife, and we just have a great time improvising ideas, and some of them are actually pretty good.
And have you had anyone write to you and say, hey, I listened to this particular episode or watched the show, and I stole that idea and I ran with it? You would have had feedback over the last 6 years?
You know, we have not had that happen yet, although I did have one guy who saw an idea and said he had launched a product of the same name, although it was a completely different idea. But it was nice to get an email from someone who was kind of thinking in the same way I was. So although the game show has only been up for about 6 months now, my ultimate dream is over the next few years as the show grows that I would love to get letters from people or links to websites that say, hey, we stole one of your ideas. Like, that's the whole point, is I legitimately cannot execute all the ideas that I have on a given day. So I really want someone to steal it, because that would be really satisfying to me.
Yeah, I saw somebody else talk about that once, and they said, if you have an idea, don't keep it to yourself. Just openly share it with people.
Yeah.
And they said, because the more you share it with people, the more feedback you get, which is going to make your idea better. And if somebody does happen to take it, steal it, and implement it before you do, they said, don't worry about it. It was obviously meant to be their idea. You were just there to sort of instigate the thought. And if you've only ever got one idea, then they said, well, you haven't got much going for you. There should be multiple ideas constantly flowing through your head.
Yeah, I mean, I just love the process of ideation and coming up with these ideas and thinking about them. And to me, that's my currency in this process. Now, I do have a legal disclaimer at the end of each of my shows, just in case I need to sue somebody and get tons of money years down the road. But who knows if that'll happen.
So when you were talking about AirPods, on one of your shows, I wish Apple would come up with something where there was no cable, and they could probably call them AirPods. You should have put that disclaimer in then.
Oh man, if we were doing that, I would have taken my Airstream G5 jet to meet you in Australia for this interview.
Yeah, that would have been good. So with you, like I love the idea of you and your friends getting together and your wife and bashing about ideas, because I do that with my wife, just sitting down and say, I've got some good ideas, and I'll run them past her.
Yeah.
And sometimes she'll go, no, that one's no good. That's crap. But every now and then I'll say something, she'll go, oh, I like that one. And all of a sudden that sparks something off of me as well. And it makes the idea grow.
It does. And we have a series of guidelines on Steele Scott's ideas. And number one is, in the spirit of improv comedy, is say yes. So whatever idea we come up with, I'd let people know before we start the game, like, we're assuming these are all good ideas. Like, they could be the most horrible, offensive, cost-ineffective ideas, but we're going to say yes. And I find that it builds a lot of creative momentum. So when we say yes, and then the other rule is there's no wrong way to play it. You know, we tell people, like, these are all the right ideas, so we're just going to go with it and commit to it. And I think in the way that the human brain works. Innovation sparks from that type of affirmation.
So at the end of each episode or each show, what do you do with the ideas in the end? Do they just sit there and you hope someone steals them, or have any of you actually taken any of your ideas and started doing something with it?
So I do a couple things with it. So the bulk of them is within the game show itself. But I publish a blog post for each show. I talk a little bit about the ideas, and then over time, I actually take the ideas and make fake commercials and fake logos for these ideas.
Okay.
So it's funny. So my goal is like, it's a complete hoax. It's total bullshit. But my goal is to really commit to it and to have as much fun taking it as far as I can, because if I write a commercial and I have a 60-second ad spot and a logo and a description and maybe like a sketch of a potential product concept, like it's going to become more real, and all of that maybe one day will contribute to something actually getting funded.
Or it could be something that somebody else sees that idea and it sparks an idea in their head that... Like I know a lot of my ideas, a lot of my marketing ideas I've ever come up with, I've seen somebody do something similar, and I've gone, oh, if I tweak that, this would really apply in podiatry, or this would apply in something else that I'm actually doing. So I love the idea, like I said, of people getting together, sharing ideas, and I think more people just need to do that themselves. Just get together with like-minded people, a couple of beers, and do you drink while you're doing it?
Oh, we actually have a whole process. We tend to do it at my house. So we cook dinner first, and then we do the show. Then we have dessert, and some people drink, some people don't. The whole point is like, when I had this idea for the game show, I said to my wife, how can we use this as a way to just spend more time with the people that we love? Yeah. Because people get older, they get married, they have kids, they have jobs, they're traveling. It gets harder and harder to see people, and certainly in New York City, where everybody's like doing the calculations of how long it will take to get somewhere as to whether or not they want to go. Like, oh, he lives uptown. I don't want to go all the way uptown. It's 100 degrees. It'll take, 40 minutes. So we really try to make it a whole fun night. And at the very least, even if like no one listened to it, at least we made some memories with our friends and had some food and a good time.
So where can people get more information about the show, or the link to that particular show?
Yeah, you can go to stealscottsideas.com, and on there you can listen to all of season 1, which we just finished, and there are 13 episodes. You can also look at the innovation portfolio, which has a list of all of these different ideas that we've been coming up with now for the past couple of years. And, subscribe on iTunes, et cetera, but it's all out there.
No, I reckon it's great. And I recommend people get together with like-minded people and just sit down and bounce ideas off of each other and do it on a regular basis. I have a few friends that I catch up with on a regular basis, and we sit around and we just talk about stuff. No, we don't go in with a particular agenda. We just talk. Yeah. And once you start talking, ideas just flow.
You do, and I like this type of approach to connecting with people, because I tell people when we do this game that I want people to do it however they want. So there's no right or wrong way. So some people, when we do this game show, are really serious and business oriented and strategic, and which is awesome. Some people are really technical. Some people, like my wife and I, we're just trying to be like as goofy and silly as we can. And that's the whole point, is like, when we get together, let's create a platform for each other's personalities to be expressed in whatever way is, most authentic.
Okay, so do you mix up the guests that are on the show, or you stick with the same people?
Yeah. No, like my wife tends to be the most frequent recurring guest, but that's because she lives there. So she's on the show a lot. I've had a couple people come back, but I try to mix it up as often as I can.
Okay, and that keeps the ideas fresh too. You haven't got the same people just sharing the same information. Yeah. No, I think that's brilliant, and I think more people need to get together with friends and bounce ideas off of each other, and you'll be surprised what you come out with. I actually have I have what I call my brain book. It's my ideas book. Nice. And I started it on the 14th of April 2000, and it was just a hardcover book. And any idea that popped into my head, I would write it down in this book. And I've had this book for like 18 years now.
Nice.
And I've moved on to a second book, but every now and then I will grab the book, open it up, and I'll just flick through the pages, and it's amazing. Yeah. An idea from 10, 14 years ago that just seemed like the dumbest thing I'd ever thought of, that I look at it now and I go, ooh, that actually could work these days. Technology has changed. It's actually possible. So I think ideas are underrated.
They are.
So another thing I wanted to ask you about was in the introduction, I said you've written 38 books. That's a bloody lot of books.
Yeah, I got a lot to say.
So are the books, do they all have a similar theme, or do you go off on a tangent on whatever happens to be going on in Scott's head?
Yeah, I think the answer is yes to all of those. I think the first, this is going to sound super pretentious, but the first 12 books were all very focused on approachability and all that sort of business aspects of the name tag. And I think after then, I began to expand in some interesting areas, from creativity and innovation to yoga. I recently wrote a book on. I tend to write about a lot of interpersonal stuff, so it's kind of whatever I'm going through.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason I write so many books is because I'm just trying to metabolize my life and explain my life to myself, and it happens to come out in book form.
No, that makes sense. Are they all self-published?
So they've all been self-published except for the yoga book that came out last year that was published through a publishing company here in New York.
I wouldn't have picked that. If you had told me, look at my 38 books, pick the one that was picked up by a publisher, I wouldn't have picked yoga. But I remember James Altucher.
Right.
He's in New York City too.
He is. I've seen him a couple times. Yep.
Yeah, and I was listening to him on a podcast once, and he said the best thing about being a self-publisher is you can write whatever you bloody well want to write about. You're not guided. You don't have a publisher saying, "Oh no, I'm sorry, you can't write about that. You've only ever written about finance. You can't write a gardening book."
Yeah. I mean, you certainly have the amazing amount of freedom and control, and I believe if you can find the right publisher, you don't lose as much of that. I mean, I was really fortunate with a company called Dover Publications, and they were really accommodating. And, when I sat down with my editor, she read all the stuff about yoga. She's like, this is really great. I don't think we need a lot of editing. And we did some very basic, cleaning up and content, but for the most part retained it. So I think there is a middle ground if you can find someone that really respects your voice, and they'll be cool with it.
Yeah, well, I've written 2 books, and I've got a ton of them in my head. And
nice.
My publisher's down in Melbourne, and he was awesome. And it was such a simple process to go through. It wasn't the cheapest process to go through, but it was a very worthwhile process going through. And initially, when I wrote the first book, I was so terrified to actually hand it out, give it to somebody, right? Because I thought he's going to read it, and I'm going to look like a complete dill. And when I got the first transcript back, and I saw all the mistakes. And then he told me, oh, no, that was really good compared to most authors, which made me feel better.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing like having a great editor. And, after having written so many books for so long now, I've just accepted the fact that no one is going to read my books. Even if that's not true, it's easier to tell myself that because it just allows me to surrender and just to let go of any expectation. And I just assume that no one's going to see it. The people who see it aren't going to read it. The people who read it probably aren't going to, send me an email. So it just kind of trickles down, and you just kind of let it go and enjoy the process of writing. And to me, similar to the game show, that's enough for me.
Okay. So other than your yoga book, what's been your favorite book that you've written so far?
I wrote a book a couple years ago, and the title of the book is one of my mantras, which is "Ideas are free, execution is priceless." And I really love this book because it was the first book I wrote in daily devotional format, which has now become the only way I write books. So it's 366 one-page chapters.
Okay.
A lot of faith-based and spiritual books are written in that format. A lot of 12-step literature is written in daily devotional format. And I just love that. I find it very digestible. So that book was the first time I used that format and have not stopped since. And also just the whole concept of moving from idea to execution. I'm really passionate about that. And I don't know, man, something really special about that book.
So it sounds like a good way of writing. So you just write 1 page a day, and you do that for a year, and the book's done.
It makes it not only digestible to read, but for people that are struggling to get their book out the door, a page a day, 300 words a day, that's nothing. So it makes it easy and accessible to physically write the book.
I think that's a great idea, because I get a lot of people ask me, how did you go about writing a book? And I've never had a problem writing. Never ever had writer's block. My problem was I wrote too much, and I had to cut stuff out. But I know for some people they find that really difficult. So I think that's a really great technique. 300 words a day, 365 pages and just let it rip.
Yeah, and I've written a lot of books too that were much more strategic and had a narrative and an arc and blah blah blah. But I think what I love about the daily devotional books is it doesn't have to follow a logical order. The chapters don't have to connect. It's just these are just 366 thoughts on a particular topic that I want to say, and people can just pick it up and read a chapter whenever they want, and they'll get something out of it. To me, that's the way I want to write books, and that's the way I want to read.
Okay, that's just given me an idea. Not too long ago, I'm still doing it at the moment, I started the 365-hour challenge. Well, it's a 365-hour mental and physical challenge, and it started 2 years ago, and I decided I was going to walk an hour a day every day for 365 days, just to see if I could do it, no matter where I was in the world. And it was one of those years where I did that much travel. I went to Japan, Fiji, Hawaii, Arizona. I came across a bobcat, a rattlesnake. I walked in freezing conditions, but I listened to a podcast, and at the end of each podcast, I shot a short video, just sharing 1 or 2, 3 takeaway points from it. And by the end of and then I took some notes down as well. By the end of the 365 days, I had 71,000 words written.
Wow.
And I've sat there going, I wonder what I should do with this. Because I've got so much good information there that I'm thinking I might put it together like what you just did, a page for each walk that I did to share the information.
It's a book waiting to happen.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Well, I've got a lot out of this podcast if nobody else has. One last thing I want to talk to you about was not only you've done so many things, but you're also a musician.
Yeah.
8 albums, is it?
Yeah, album number 9 is being recorded this coming Saturday. I'm very excited.
Talk about being an overachiever.
Yeah, right. What am I trying to prove? Yeah, so I started writing music when I was a kid, about 12 years old, and it was the first, long before books, long before name tags or any of that stuff. Music was the first love that I had because it was a way to create these like containers for my feelings and emotions and experiences that was a safe place to process whatever I was going through, good or bad.
Yeah.
So I've always written music, and I perform almost every weekend, like in the park. I just busk out in the middle of the park and play for strangers. It's really just a fun way to connect with people and to share music. And music has always been this really highly personal, highly vulnerable part of the art that I make that is very precious to me, and I'm really proud of it.
Yeah, and it's what I like was when people say, "Oh, I don't have time to do things," and I'm thinking, like, how old are you now?
I'm 38.
38, my God. And I was talking to someone just the other day, Adam Franklin, which I know you're friends with on Facebook.
That's right.
And he's only 38. And I'm thinking, what I love to see, you're 38 years of age, you've got your 9th album coming out, you've written 38 books, you've got game shows, you do it, you're a speaker, you've been on TEDx, you've done so much in 38 years, but people sit back and go, no, geez, I don't have time.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe once I hit 40, I'll actually start applying myself.
Yeah, yeah. I was actually going to say that. You know, I don't think you're sort of putting enough effort.
Yeah. Well, it's a really tricky question because I'm often asked those types of questions about, call it productivity or getting things done or how much time you have. And I have no answers for people because clearly I don't have a problem with time management. Clearly I've never struggled with being productive. So I have like zero advice to give to anybody because I am maybe the worst possible person to ask any time management related question.
Well, I think it's really simple. I think you just get shit done.
I do.
It's really, I'm going to do an album. You just get the shit done. Because I saw a photo on Facebook where you had all these pictures there of what you'd written down and things crossed out. So obviously you got a process of putting something together.
Yeah,
and you just get and get it done.
I'm extremely organized, and that is a very boring superpower that allows me to do some cool stuff.
Damn, I wish it was a superpower I had.
Yeah, well, I wrote 3 books about the topic. You can learn more now.
No. So, okay, this leads me on to my final question. This is the question I ask every guest, and I don't warn them normally that I'm going to ask this question. It's Monday morning. You just bumped into someone sees your name tag and go, bloody hell, you're the name tag guy. I was listening to It's No Secret with Dr. T, and I'm about to go into work. It's 8:30 in the morning. That's when I'm going to start. What's the number one tip you would give me when my bum hits the chair Monday morning?
I'm going to give someone the result. I don't know what they should do, but I'll give them the end result that they can shoot for, and they can figure out what the strategy is.
Yep.
The end result is whether it's a coworker or a customer, client, et cetera. You have to do something that makes this other person like stop in their tracks and look at you and go, "You did this just for me?"
Oh, I like that.
That to me that's what people say when you are generous and when you make a connection and when you're thoughtful and when you go out of your way to do. You could be making guacamole for the office. You could be going out of your way to deliver a report, whatever, doing something for your manager that makes their crazy life easier, something that makes them say either verbally or with their eyes, "Wow, you did this just for me." If you can do that once a day, like, you're set.
Oh, I love that. And like, this is going to be episode 56. And
Okay.
nobody has given me that answer. And that's why I like asking this question, because every one of my guests, I don't think I've had the same answer twice, because everybody thinks that some of them have touched on a similar subject about being grateful and that type of thing, which you should, but nobody's given me that answer, which I thought was brilliant.
Well, I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, it was good. So, Scott, I just want to thank you for being on It's No Secret with Dr. T. This has been fun, and like I said, we haven't spoken for 9 years, and even though I've weirdly carried the "Hello, my name is Scott's friend" card in my wallet, which is a little bit creepy, but like I said, the information on the back is why I carry it around. And if I hadn't carried it around, you wouldn't be on the podcast now.
Well, what a privilege to be close to your bum for almost a decade.
Oh, no, I don't put it near my bum. I'll put it in my front pocket.
Oh, even better. I'm close to the family jewels. That's awesome.
Yes, I know. You're part of the family jewels, which I think is fantastic.
Wow.
So, Scott, thank you, and have an awesome day.
Thanks a lot, Tyson. See you.
I have to admit, I think Scott has a very unique outlook when it comes to name tags, which is why I wanted to get him on the show, because I remember 9 years ago when I saw him do his talk for the Australian Institute of Management, how unique I thought that was. And the reason why I kept his business card, because it had those 10 points on the back, which I will put in the show notes, so you can go and check that out. But a few things I wanted to share one more time was challenge yourself to be more approachable and make it part of your brand. I thought that was really important. The next point I thought was great was when he was talking about his steal Scott's ideas. And I think you should be getting together with people that are like-minded and just bounce ideas off of each other. Even if they're ideas that are going to be real ideas that you want to work on, not just fake ideas. But I like the concept of coming up with a fake idea, because it just keeps your mind active. And an active mind will come up with better ideas down the track. And the last thing, when he's mentioning about how he wrote, and he just follows that 365-day format of just writing a little bit, maybe 300 words each day. And when you put that all together, you do have a book. And a book doesn't have to be something that starts and finishes a particular way. It could be 365 separate ideas that just stimulates the reader's mind. So my guest next week is from Melbourne, and she is going to be talking about creating visual models. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but here's a little snippet of what you can expect next week.
I am spreadsheet anal. So this is, yes, I'm visual. However, I'm actually more auditory digital. So the reason I love these models, it speaks to all the modalities. So it does speak to all of them. But the reason I love this so much is that this is how my brain works in its natural state. When someone speaks and the information is coming in, it's like a flood of words coming into my brain. My brain goes into autopilot and will start to organize the information. I am always summarizing and organizing the information so I can understand it and simplify it. So yeah, it's a very auditory digital. I love checklists. I love spreadsheets. I love visual models because I love order and understanding.
Believe me when I say you're going to get so much out of next week's episode, because she is so fired up all the way through it and just shares so much good information. Before I go, I just want to mention a few friends' podcasts I think you should check out. The first one is called Unstructured with Eric Hunley. It's one of my favourite podcasts at the moment. And two others I want to mention is The Savvy Dentist with Dr. Jesse Green, who's been on this podcast twice, and In Top Form with Dave Fries, who's also been a guest on here twice. And Dave partners up with his son, Alex Fries, and also Somnastica, who has been a guest on here as well. So a lot of my past guests are also podcasters themselves. And some people might say, why do I mention other people's podcasts on my own podcast show? And I honestly just believe in sharing good information. When I did my 365-hour challenge, I shared over 365 videos sharing information of other people's podcasts. And I think business people, podcasters, it doesn't matter what you're doing, we need to share information with each other. And I always say sharing is caring, but what you give out, you're going to get back tenfold. That's what I believe, and that's why I do it. Okay, so that's it for me this week. Hope you get something from this episode, and look after yourself, look after your family, and I will talk to you again next week. Bye for now.